Hello, you are warmly welcome as we join together for our global gathering this morning. My name is Felicity, and as we start our time together today, we are going to join in a song. The words will appear along the bottom of the screen for you to join in. So let's sing, Hear the Call of the Kingdom. The kingdom, lift your eyes to the King. Let his song rise within you as a fragrant offering of how God, rich in mercy, came in Christ to redeem all who trust in his unfailing grace. King of heaven, we will answer the call, we will follow. The kingdom to reach out to the lost with the Father's compassion in the wonder of the cross, bringing peace and forgiveness and a hope yet to come. Let the nations put their trust in him. King of heaven, we will answer the call, we will follow.
Hi, welcome to our Oasis Global Gathering and thanks so much for joining us today. My name's Anna Parr and I'm a member of Oasis Church Waterloo. This week we're going to be continuing looking at our series called The Great Reversal, and Steve Chalke, our Senior Minister at Oasis Church Waterloo, will be unpacking the beatitude that says, "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled." But first, we're going to be hearing from Michelle Zana and the work that she's been doing for the food bank.
Morning! My name's Michelle. I'm a delivery driver for the food banks. I'm helping out Lambeth, Brixton and Norwood during lockdown, and today you get to follow me around and see what my day is like. I'm picking up our zip van, which is just around the corner from the warehouse, so I'll pick it up, get in, and then pick up my packages. This is the warehouse. It's always bustling, always full, but everyone's working really hard to make it work and keep social distancing active. Come in, I get given a stack of parcels. These are the stack of parcels, and then I ship them all into my van and start my day. So I'm all packed, I'm ready to go and hit up my first delivery. I didn't think there were hills in London, but this is on a hill. But it's okay, it was just a small delivery. Just one box full, it's dropped off, and we're on to the next one. I don't speak Spanish, and this happens every so often. I have a delivery to a family that don't really speak that much English, and sometimes they can be confused as to why I've brought food to their door. And I just had one of those. But the nice thing was, once we worked out that they didn't have to pay for it, they were so grateful. And it's really nice to be able to help, you know? And I think I should probably learn to speak some basic Spanish. Successful. Fourth, it was getting confusing. I think it was my fourth drop off successful. On to number 5. Number 5 done. That one was definitely number 5. I think a lot of people think that a food bank is just going to be like some pasta and some tins of beans, but all of our food parcels have a little bit of something nice in it. So this one had a block of chocolate, and you should have seen his face when he realized he wasn't just getting some tins of beans. It's the last parcel. And that is my last empty box. That's delivery 6. Now we're going to take the van back. That's me finished for the day. The van is dropped back off and I am on my way home. I hope you've had a fun time with me on my food bank delivery run today. I hope you've learnt a little bit about what we do.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for putting that short video together. I'm sure lots of people who do the food bank deliveries will be able to relate to that story about the language barriers. This week has been National Volunteering Week, so we should pause and say thank you to all the people who volunteer for their local food bank, but also who volunteer for other charities and organisations. I've only been volunteering for the food bank since lockdown began, but in that time I've met lots of amazing people, some of whom have volunteered with the food bank for 2, 3, or even 5 years or longer. Their commitment, their servant-heartedness, and their passion for the cause are infectious and inspiring. So thank you so much to all those volunteers out there. Thank you for everything that you have done, and thank you for everything that you continue to do to fight injustice, reduce inequality, and care for the most vulnerable in our society. If you'd like to get involved in the Waterloo, Norwood, Brixton Food Bank, they would love to hear from you. So please email them at the address at the bottom of the screen. Alternatively, if you live elsewhere in the UK, you can go to the Trussell Trust website and click on Find a Food Bank to locate your nearest one. Next, we're going to be hearing our reading for today. It's Habakkuk's Complaint, taken from the book of Habakkuk, chapter 1, verses 2 to 4. And it's read for us today by Derek McIntosh from Oasis Church Bath. Straight after that, we'll be hearing from Steve.
How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen, or cry out to you violence, but you do not save? Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Destruction and violence are before me. There is strife and conflict abound. Therefore, the law is paralyzed and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous so that justice is perverted.
Everyone's talking about the same thing. We're talking about the tragic death of George Floyd and the dark days that have followed since. I guess that just like me, you've watched the terrible footage of George being pushed to the floor, his neck crushed and the life squeezed from his body. Like me, you've read the transcript of his words over those last few minutes of his life. "Please, man," he begs as he's ground into the pavement. "My stomach hurts. My neck hurts. Everything hurts. They're going to kill me," he splutters. "Mama, I'm through. I can't breathe," he cries. And as one black American commentator has written since, if George can't breathe, we can't breathe. We've been shocked. We've been enraged. We've wept. We're frustrated and we're angry. We feel the pain and the despair of George's family, of his friends and his community and the wider black community. We long for an end to the injustice that seems yet again to have made its ugly presence felt. If George can't breathe, we can't breathe. But we have to acknowledge that racism is not a uniquely American problem. It's also a huge issue here in the UK. Britain had a big hand in industrialising black enslavement. We were the ones who colonised America. And we played our part in initiating systems of apartheid across the African continent. And still today, black people here in Britain are disproportionately stopped and searched and imprisoned, whilst African, Caribbean and Asian heritage people are more likely in the current crisis to die of COVID-19. That's why I chose as a Bible reading those verses from that old-time prophet Habakkuk. "How long, Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen? Or cry out to you, violence, but you do not save? Why do you make me look at injustice? Why do you tolerate wrongdoing? Destruction and violence are before me. There's strife and conflict abounds. Therefore, the law is paralysed and justice never prevails. The wicked hem in the righteous, so that justice is perverted." As Jesus stood on the hill and delivered what we call his 9 Beatitudes, part of his famous Sermon on the Mount, the theme of this series of talks, I've got a feeling that Habakkuk's words, which he would have known very well, could not have been far from his mind. "Blessed are those who hunger and thirst after righteousness, for they will be satisfied," Jesus announces. But what did he mean? Well, I've read endless theological books and heard many sermons that have told me that what Jesus is doing here is urging his listeners, his followers, us, to strive to live lives that God can approve of. Learn to hunger, learn to thirst after what matters in life, righteousness, rather than the junk food of your own appetites. Get yourselves sorted, get a grip, make the right choices, commit to the right beliefs and the right behaviours, then you will receive the gift of God's righteousness. But only then will God bless you. Is that it? Is that what the gospel, the good news, amounts to? That's not grace. That's not about God's faithfulness to us. Instead, it's just another round of life-draining laws and demanding commandments. Another dose of pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. Another dose of salvation by works. But as we've seen through this series, Jesus' tone and approach is completely different. This was his great reversal. Hunger is, of course, what we feel when our stomachs are empty. We're famished. Thirst is what we feel when we're dehydrated. we crave water. Hunger and thirst are those desperate feelings that we experience when we lack what is essential to our very survival. So if someone truly hungers and thirsts for righteousness, then he or she must be, by definition, being starved of the righteousness they need to survive. Now, the word that Jesus uses for righteousness is exactly the same word that's also translated as justice. Jesus is saying, blessed are those who, like Habakkuk, hunger and thirst for righteousness, for what is right, for justice. God blesses those who are starved of justice. That's what Jesus is saying. Those who are desperate for rightness in a world full of unrightness. God blesses those who thirst for what is right, just as they do for water when they're denied it. And as we know, Jesus' words were originally addressed to those who felt impotent, those whose voice had been silent, those who were shut out, who the system never worked for. The people that followed Jesus up the hill on that day were the socially and the spiritually excluded. They were the despised outsiders. Those who longed for, who ached for, who agonized for justice, but never ever got a taste of it. Have you noticed how sometimes when we ache or we long for a different world, the issues we're focused on are external? They're big ones, societal ones. They're about the systems that control our society. We feel overwhelmed by the global issues of racism, of inequality, poverty, famine, violence, of climate change and consumerism. We feel like Habakkuk, that justice is perverted and the law is paralyzed. We thirst for a better world. We wrestle with the powers that control our society, but we feel powerless and impotent. But the truth is, if you're anything like me, at other times, your struggle is internal. It's with yourself. I get overwhelmed by my own self-centeredness, my pride and my materialism. I'm conflicted. I'm hurt by my own habits, my sins and my failings. I'm frustrated by my inability to be who I want to be. For instance, if I could only practice that lesson I can articulate to others so well, reflect and respond, I say, rather than react and regret. I ache, I long, I hunger, and I thirst to be a better version of me. But so often I feel trapped, I feel powerless, I feel somehow impotent in the struggle. Blessed are you who are overwhelmed, who despair, who live in tensions that you can't navigate, both personal and global. Those of you who wrestle with the way you are as well as the way the world is, who feel like Habakkuk. God is with you, says Jesus. God blesses you in your craving, your longing, your thirsting, in your struggle to find water, in your fight to find the food of rightness, announces Jesus. And that's also part of it. Our desperation for justice must cause us to speak up about all that keeps its knee on the neck of black people, either through prejudice or indifference here and elsewhere around the world. For everyone who counts themselves as part of Oasis, this responsibility sits, of course, at the very core of who we are. The Oasis Circle of Inclusion is our badge. We're committed to equality, to justice, and to inclusion for all, as well as to constantly working to do better than we have done. That means that we have to address the question again of how we can more effectively support one another as we struggle and thirst and hunger to break the cycle of racial prejudice and of social and institutional inequality. Our task, following the example of Habakkuk, must be to create room for an open and an honest conversation about these things as we work with all our energy to build a society where no one is discriminated against or disadvantaged because of the colour of their skin, their ethnicity, or their nationality. You don't have to be black to call out racism, but perhaps you have to be afraid or complicit not to. But here's the good news. God meets us and blesses us in our struggle as we wrestle with ourselves and our attitudes and with society. God meets us in our lack, in our mixed up motives, when we're not all together, when we feel defeated, when we feel we've run out of willpower or energy or creativity or even hope. God is with you in your longing for rightness, in your quest for justice, in that craving for the refreshment of hope, in that ache, in that agony, in that pain, in that anger, in that frustration, in those tears, in that despair, as you hunger and thirst for righteousness. God is on your side. Now that is gospel. That is good news. That is grace.
Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. There's an aching and a longing deep within our souls for this hurting world to be healed and the brokenness to be washed away. And my prayers that I bring this morning are prayers for peace. Peace for this broken world and peace in our hearts too as we look on with helplessness, wondering what it is that we can do. And I think often as we pray for peace, it's not that we hope to change God's heart, because his heart is always for peace. It's always for the sacredness of human life and to bring healing and love to a broken world. But as we give our prayers and we say those words to God, we hope to bring our heart into line with his. We hope to know what it is to see his peace that surpasses all understanding and that it can settle deep within our souls. So as I read a prayer this morning, I just have some music from a young musician, Matthew Gilbert, here in Hull, that he wrote called New Beginnings. And I hope as you listen to this prayer and as you see the words and the music, that peace will settle deep within your soul and carry you into the week that's coming. As we pray for peace this day, Lord, let your love wash away brokenness and hatred. Comfort those who are longing and aching for justice, crying out to be heard. Bring your peace into situations that we cannot fully understand. Let us see every human life as sacred, created in your image and in love. Let us share in the joys and sorrows of our neighbours and strangers, that we might know peace in this hurting world. Let us change what we can, but leave everything else in your hands. Let us not be overwhelmed, for we can pass our burdens to you. And as we cry out for justice in our helplessness and pain, let us know a peace that surpasses all understanding. May your joy be our strength, and your peace and grace fill this world and fill our hearts. Amen. Peace go with you. God's quiet within the noise. God's hope within the uncertainty. God's rest within the toil. God's presence within your soul. Peace go with you.
Thank you, Anne, for those prayers. There's a strong link, isn't there, between peace and justice. No justice, no peace has been a popular slogan of anti-racial marches in recent years. Nathan challenged us last week. What is the one thing that makes you so angry, the one injustice, that you would fight the rest of your life to end it? Those kind of questions, they can't be answered in a few brief moments of reflection. We need to let them settle, to marinate in our lives. We need to take them into our weeks and our conversations, to reflect deeply about them as we listen to the news or as we find those quiet moments. For many of us, listening to the news over the past couple of weeks, our anger will have been roused. So as Steve said, what part can we play in helping to break the cycles of racial prejudice and injustice? How can we reach out to others and create opportunities for those open and honest conversations? And of course, all of this relates to other forms of exclusion as well. The message of the Oasis Messy O is simple, and Jesus' message was clear. All are in. All are blessed. We need to pause and hear the call of the kingdom. We're going to finish today's global gathering with a song called How Much Longer. It was written by 3 sons of preachers, 2 black and 1 white, and it was written in response to the racial violence in the US in 2016. Sadly, it's still deeply relevant to us today. Our prayer and our hope for those who hunger and thirst for righteousness is that one day these songs won't need to be sung, because all will be filled. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we hope to see you again next week for our global gathering.
In the silence, tell me, can you hear the voices calling out of the disappeared? Broken spirits, dormant dreams. How much longer will justice sleep when a lawless heart is the voice we're hearing? We need freedom, freedom, freedom. How much longer till we sing a new song? How much longer till we sing a new song?
Hearts of saints and sinners too, both have walked away from the destitute. Call them back to sing as one, a song of freedom now, a song to overcome. When a lawless heart is the voice we're hearing, we need freedom, freedom, freedom.
How much longer till we sing a new song? How much longer us down, where the river of justice rolls and all oppression drowns. It flows with life, love and truth. May the old be washed away and hearts be made anew. Come on, brother, lay your weapons down, where the river of justice rolls and all oppression drowns. It flows with life, love and truth. May the old be washed away and hearts be made anew. When the ruler's heart is the voice we're hearing, we need freedom, freedom, freedom. How much longer till we sing a new song? How much longer till we sing a new song? How much longer till we sing a new song?
And how much longer till we sing a new song?